Hello and welcome to the Estate and Consultancy podcast for a very special episode. I'm joined today by Dan Woods. So we're going to talk about Dan's journey in estate agency and the journey his mental health has gone in that time, plus the highs, the lows, and some of the addiction involved with that as well. Dan, first of all, thank you for coming to see us today, mate. I know this is going to be a hard one for yourself to record. I'm going to go very deep and personal. So thank you, first of all, for being, hugely brave to come on.
I appreciate it, and thank you for hosting it, Chris. I can't think of anyone better that and more comfortable. I feel talking about it with. I'm definitely nervous. You could probably tell. Hands are sweaty. There's a lot that obviously those close to me obviously are fully aware of. But yeah, for me, I thought it would be good to share a bit of my story, or most of my story, with others, to hopefully resonate.
I think that, before we even start, the world of estate agency has a terrible track record when it comes to mental health. So I think anything we can do and you can do to help that, I think is all on you, mate. That's really, really good of you. So talk me through the beginning parts of your journey with your mental health in estate agency. So where did it all begin? Where do you start to think to yourself, okay, this isn't necessarily how I should be feeling on a Wednesday afternoon?
So I think, to be honest with you, I started the industry when I was 16, which is about 22, nearly 23 years ago now. And I think in that time, between then and now, the whole world's changed. Mental health, I don't even remember that being a word, when I first started and for a long part of my career, to be honest with you. But when I think back now, and you think of the environment that you were in at, particular times of, the early sort of stages of my career, and some examples of, how the office was run and, I suppose you'd call it banter today, but actually when you look back at it, having, balls, full of staples thrown at your head for not hitting your targets and getting locked out of offices and, all of this stuff that comes with it. And, the sort of adage that you speak to people that were in the industry around the same sort of time, is all very the norm, chairs away, until you hit your targets, you don't go home. And by the way, that was a lot of, I loved that that culture that I was brought up in and around. I did actually enjoy a lot of it. And it did get a lot out of me. But, when you think back, it was probably then that, things probably start to resonate in your head and slowly chip away without you knowing it, really. That constant pressure of coming in every single day, having to reset, and, not leave until you've hit those targets and being compared and, obviously, put up against, other people, in terms of results and we choose that industry and sales is just a state agency. Sales in general is very much like that, and was probably a lot worse in, the 80s and, you watch the films like Wall Street, etc., and, you can see obviously that, was probably very similar in them days. But I think personally for me, it was probably around those early days, of walking through that door and being told, right, it's time to put on a mask. So you sort of forget who you are, really. And when you've done that for, 22 years, or when you've done that for, 10 or 15 years, eventually that mask is just continuously on, be it whether you're in the office, whether you're in your car, whether you're at home, whoever you're with, you pretty much, mold yourself into that sort of salesperson and that person who's got to be 10 out of 10, 24/7, and he's not allowed to have, a high or a low, really.
And was there any particular time where that sort of, let's call it office banter, to be polite about it, so, throwing a stapler at someone or stealing their chair and whatever else maybe, was there any stage where that went from being sort of a bit of a laugh and a bit of, oh, you've not got your chair for the rest of the afternoon, mate, and I've just phoned a paperclip at you and whatever else it may be? Was there any time where that went from being, okay, that's quite funny and quite bantery and whatever you want to call it, to the point where you're like, actually, this isn't good?
Yeah, 100%. There were times where, you'd sit back quietly and think, that's crossed the line. Might not have been with me. There's probably, lots of other examples of, where you would have sat there and thought, yeah, this is, a bit of a boys' club, was always a term thrown around. But yeah, where I would have sat back and thought to myself, you crossed the line. But if it sort of living a bit in fear of not being able to say too much because you don't want to lose your job, or you don't want to upset someone, or you don't want to feel like you're not a man, I can't take it. Stop being a pussy, man up, that type of environment where you're like, okay, I can't really say much about this because, if I do say something, I'm not going to be one of the lads. I'm not going to get invited to Curry Club. on
Yeah.
Tuesday. I'm not going to get invited out for beers to watch the football and that sort of stuff.
And do you think it's a pressure to conform and fit in that
100%.
kind of keeps that going?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you want to be, you want to be one of the lads. And until maybe, and it comes with probably age and experience, but whereas now, I'm very much, of the opinion that I don't need to fit in with everyone. I don't need to be everyone's friend. Not everyone needs to like me. Not everyone's going to like me. But in those days, you certainly, felt like, yeah, you needed to fit in, and, you needed to sometimes behave and act and do things that maybe weren't quite you or your personality, but actually, I'm here 13, 14, 15 hours a day, I'm better off, doing that to be, part of the team than, well, those that didn't fit in, just, they weren't there very long.
Yeah, sure. You mentioned earlier about sort of wearing a mask in the office and sort of
Yeah.
everything's fine and yeah, it's good and yeah, we're smashing the phones and whatever it may be. How did that take a toll by having to be kind of perma happy, perma salesman, so always on effectively?
Yeah, that's tough. That I think that is a really, really tough one, because when you're coming in and you might have had some bad news, outside of the office or in your personal life, or things just might be, come on, let's face it, we all wake up and have a shit start to the day, or we feel shit about ourselves, or we just don't feel it today. But obviously, walking through that door and having to put that mask on your face, yeah, I found it difficult at times to and I had plenty of confrontations with my manager at the time, who was known to be, obviously super upbeat and, super positive, positive attitude breeds positive results, which it absolutely does. By the way, I appreciate that, you need to have a positive outlook and think positively, but ultimately sometimes you're not always in that, right frame of mind to be that way. But there's only really one answer: sort yourself out.
Yeah.
Sort yourself out. Like, simple as that. It's like, there is no solution. There is no sit down, let's have a chat. Why are you feeling like that? And you don't need to unload everything, but just you had a shit start to the day. Go for a coffee, go walk around the block. Get yourself sorted and come back in, as opposed to no, it's time to get cracking.
Yeah, and how did that take a toll on you over time? Because I appreciate you can fake a smile for a day or two or a period of time, and it's probably not the worst thing in the world. And we've all been in those situations. When it comes to weeks, months, years, and you're getting staples thrown at your head and whatever else it might be, and you think, actually, this isn't a positive environment. This isn't a smiley place for me. I'm having to smile and meet strangers and be that upbeat guy. How does that take a toll? What does that actually look like day to day?
I think eventually you look for a bit of a high, or you look for some sort of release, whether that be, some people it might be going to the gym, some people it might be a positive release, and for a long time it was with me, football, gym, boxing, whatever, to try and get those sort of natural endorphins out and just get that frustration out of you. But I think the industry, it's well known and well supported that the industry, not just a state agency, but maybe recruitment and insurance, brokerage, all types of sales industries, there's a heavy culture of drinking, and drinking leading to other things, like drugs and other types of substances, and for me, my life took quite a dark turn, and that wasn't the fault of anyone else, and I couldn't sit here today and put my finger on it saying, yep, that's the problem, that was exactly what caused me to go down that road, but eventually, and slowly but surely, drinking a bit more, going out a bit more, bit of, say, like a social club, boys club, you're in the pubs quite often after work every night, and like, we're all human. We try something, and sometimes that something you try can spiral out of control. And in my case, it spiraled very much so out of control.
Well, let's look at that path if that's okay. If you're happy to get on that road.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So talk me through how that looks. So talk me through. Let's start with the kind of how it looks to start off with. So you start off by going to the pub every Friday night with the work and good month this guy, good week, and whatever else it may be.
Yeah.
How does that escalate?
So for me, I was, I think it's obvious probably where this is going. Obviously, I had an addiction to drugs, specifically cocaine. That was my addiction, which got progressively worse and worse and worse, probably into my sort of, latter part of my 20s and early 30s. But obviously it starts somewhere. And that somewhere is, having a good week at work, getting into the pubs at, Friday, Saturday, whatever it might be, and celebrating. And someone in the pub, has got something, for you to use and
Mhm.
pop to the toilet and let's have a bit of a laugh. And it's the weekend, let's celebrate. We've had a really good result this week, and you're almost giving yourself a bit of a license to say yeah, it's justifiable. Yeah, absolutely. We've hit all our targets this week. I've worked bloody hard. I've worked 65, 70 hours. It's now time for me to enjoy myself, and get pissed and just get fucked basically.
Yeah.
And obviously, slowly but surely, I've got quite an addictive personality. So I am absolutely obsessive with anything I do, whether that be, fortunately for me in my life now, it's, positive. But in absolutely anything I do, be it dieting, going to the gym, work, whatever I'm doing is all or nothing type personality. So when I look back at it now, and at that particular time in my life, early 20s, I didn't really know that. You're still sort of finding yourself and learning, about yourself. But picking up a drug, was just opening a can of worms, obviously, for later life. And obviously, that whole, celebrating then turns into, oh, I've had a bad day today, so I'm going to go out there and use today because I've had a shit day, so I need to make myself feel better. I need to get myself up for it. I'm really, really tired today. I've worked, as I say, 60, 70, 80 hours this week. So, I'm going to give myself a bit of a, pick me up today, and introducing it into, from Friday, Saturday, Sunday becomes Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. Before you know it, it's Monday through Sunday.
And how does that look on a daily basis? So I'm going to be full transparent here. When it comes to drugs,
Yeah.
alcohol, I'm a bit of a nun. I'm very boring, all that sort of stuff. I'll throw
Yep.
myself under the bus here. So I'm probably the best person to ask these questions because I'm an idiot on this
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
stuff. So how does that look when it comes to an average day at work? Let's say the average Friday, for example,
Yeah.
come to work. Is it using before work? Is it during work? Is it after? What does that look like?
So it progressed. I can only talk about my example, obviously. So not anyone else's, but for me, it progressed. Initially, as I said, through my sort of early 20s, 2025, it was very much a weekend. Every other week, maybe once a month, sometimes even once every 3 months. It wasn't really what I would look back on today and say, oh, it was a problem. But without a doubt, addictive personality. Eventually, I know what that does to me. So looking back now, it's clear that was going to become a bit of an issue for me, knowing the personality and knowing me and who I am now. So I think though that first scooting maybe over the first sort of 20s to 25, 26, it was fine. I wouldn't use to come to work or to get through work. It was very much a weekend and an outside of work thing, but obviously progressively got worse. But from the ages of maybe 27, 26, 27 to, early 30s, it took a bad turn for me, which was, I would use before work, during work, after work, and, might have been 2 or 3 days a week, 4 days a week, but, there were a point, obviously, where I was at rock bottom and my absolute, peak of addiction, where I would use every single day. And there were points where I wasn't working, as you can imagine, because it's quite difficult to hold down a job, in full addiction. But there were points of my using where I hadn't slept for 10 days straight.
Wow.
So I would probably where the normal person, but it's recreational, right? So more often than not, you're probably surrounded by a lot of people that do use, but I would probably use 8-9 grams of cocaine a day at times, for 8, 9, 10, 12 days straight. I think the most I remember, and I don't know why I remember this, but the longest period was with no sleep. Was 9 on 2 weeks.
And do you think that everyone at work knew, and it was like the worst kept secret?
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry to cut across you, but yeah, absolutely. Certainly in my the where I was working in this particular corporate company, at the time, absolutely everyone knew, and it's no secret. And obviously, there were people there that I would use with, and eventually, when you're not turning up, or when you're going missing, and you're doing like an area role at the time, which is, I was responsible for a number of offices, so I had the perfect excuse
Sure.
to, flip between offices and, one-to-ones.
Here, there, everywhere.
Here, there, everywhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
not turn up. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
busy today. I've got a board meeting today. I'm, traveling. I'm interviewing. Etc. So it was probably the worst job for me because, I took that job as my addiction got worse. Always getting to the point of, where it was, at my worst. And that just gave me the freedom to go and use whenever I wanted to, really, without many people knowing.
And how much money must you be spending on this? I mean, I'm not one for cocaine metrics, but this sounds expensive.
Yeah. So in my, I went to rehab, so money that costs money, obviously. Yeah. But in terms of my using, put it this way, my using, I sold a house, of which the equity of that house was I had over 100k in my bank, and the lot went within 6 months.
Jesus.
So on a daily basis, £300-400 a day.
Wow.
Yeah, so 2.5 grand a week probably.
And was there any particular thing that happened? So you mentioned rehab there. So
yeah,
was there any particular stage where you thought to yourself, this has got to stop, or was this like an intervention from your family, or what was the bit where you thought to yourself, this is getting pretty tricky?
I didn't ever think I would stop. Sorry, I get quite emotional, but I didn't think I would stop. Obviously, since then, I've had another little girl. Since me, being better. And part of the reason doing this was last weekend was 5 years of me being clean.
Yeah.
So it's a nice round number, and
Yeah.
I was ready to start talking, or trying to put a story out there that might help people that are suffering in the industry. Might not, but so sorry. Remind me of that question again.
So at what point did you put a line in the sand and go, this is...
Lots of points is the honest answer. There was more lines than a zebra. I had line after line after line after line, pardon the pun, in the sand that I thought that was me coming to an end. That was me coming into an end. But the truth behind, a lot of it was, trying to stop and, doing a lot to maybe please other people and just, turning up to meetings like CA meetings, which is Cocaine Anonymous, support groups, but taking photos of me there just to say, look, I'm here, I'm trying to get better. But in actual fact now, with a clear head, I can look back and think I wasn't ready to get better. Rehab, I spent best part of 15 grand on rehab. I was there for a month, enjoyed my time there, come out there, thought I was fixed. Within 2 days, I'd relapsed, and straight back on it. Because it's just like a protective bubble, really. It's not going to get... It didn't help me anyway. That particular part of the process didn't help me. So I got to a point where I've got a lovely daughter who's nearly 14 this year. Got a little girl who's now 15 months, and a fiance, which has all come post addiction. But I didn't think I'd make it. I just thought I would. This is going to kill me. Truth be known, I really wanted to stop. I didn't know how to stop. I wanted it to end. I didn't think it would end. I wanted to kill myself because I thought that's the only way to end it, but I didn't have the bollocks to kill myself. I was just a coward. I just didn't know how to fix it. And I just thought that was it. That was me done. And then it's okay, it's not, if you die, it's when you die. One of these, your heart's just going to give up and you're going to be done. I just didn't know because I tried a lot of different things and it just wasn't working. But ultimately, when I look back now, I wasn't ready for myself. But I was very fortunate. Not as many people are. I have got a great family, and they didn't know what to do in the end. Don't get me wrong, but certain people didn't give up on me. And the biggest thing, the biggest driver for me was my fiance Stacey. She met me. It was crazy, really, but she met me peak of my addiction. And start buying me, which is mental, and her family said, and I don't blame them. What are you doing? And she had experienced something similar with a previous partner, which, didn't end. It ended in the worst possible way. So for her to still stick around with me, so new into a relationship, and yeah, she saved my life. A lot of other people were involved, and mums and dads and sisters, and they were great. But she is, they say, behind every good man is a strong woman, and fucking hell, she deserves a medal. Without her, I wouldn't be. I know for a fact, without her, I wouldn't have got better.
And so, talk me through sort of the route to recovery. And I appreciate you probably never recovered in these grand scheme of things. It's always something you probably have in the back of your mind the rest of your life, I'd imagine. Where does that begin? You mentioned you went to rehab once and sort of relapsed very quickly on the way
Yeah.
out of it. When did sort of the road to recovery begin? Looking back,
I tried for several years, so I'd say I was in deep addiction for about 3 to 5 year 5 years, but solid, day in day out, 3 years, where I thought I'm just not going to sort this. And in that time, I tried Cocaine Anonymous, I tried therapists, I tried rehab, lots of different things. I got a text from someone who saw in a high street a company called Beat My Addictions. It's got a guy called Chris ran it.
it's always a Chris.
Yeah. Chris Hill. And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to talk too much about him because, but I could go into that. But ultimately, it was a completely different format to what I was trying and what I'd, been tried, what I had tried before. But meeting Chris, going through that program, which was a completely different program, talks, reprogramming your brain, understanding addiction, understanding how your brain has now become accustomed to needing whatever substance that is, understanding that addictions are lots of different things: drugs, drink, cigarettes, clothes, chocolate, shopping, sex, porn. There was so many people I met that had addictions, but different addictions. And I think with drugs, it's looked upon as like, you druggy, all of the terms that come with it. It's looked at as dirty and, it's illegal, right? But everyone actually in some form does have an addiction to whatever that might be. So understanding why I had an addiction and, all of the, processes that come with it. And it's quite complex, but actually just it's about reprogramming your brain and your thought process. And I saw it all and I just thought, this is going to be a hoax. I'm going to spend another X, Y, and Z amount of money and this ain't going to help me. I did the program. I got to day 8, which is called a withdrawal period, which is, the hardest point. I relapsed, went straight, but I didn't relapse to I would relapse, Chris, and go, there was times where I went missing. My family didn't know where I was. My partner didn't know where I was for 6 weeks, 7 weeks.
Sorry.
I just went away, vanished off the face of the earth. We could probably do 5 or 6 episodes about this. It's just more's coming back to me now. But what I put them through and what the addiction put them through is just, it's awful. But so I relapsed, but I didn't relapse to the extent of where I normally use. I got straight back on the horse's back and went through the program again. So I went back to Chris the day after, where usually I'd be on a bender for 6, 7, 8 days until either the money ran out or I fell asleep or someone found me or whatever it might have been. And I went back the day after and went through the program again. And then from when I completed that program to now, addiction free. There is I think people, always say you're always in recovery with addiction. I think it depends on how you look at it. For me, I'm out of it. That's the way that I have to see it. For me to help me, it was a dark part, dark part of my past. But I'm free from it. I'm 5 years, out of addiction now. And in that time, I've helped a lot of people. I've run workshops for mental health and addiction, and it helps me. I use that as a way to stay on the straight and narrow. I've had probably in those 5 years equally as tough times as I had prior, which I think you can easily use certain reasons to use. But there's been so many more tougher scenarios that have happened since then that would have easily, back in the day, just led me to just fall back into addiction or relapse, but that haven't. So yeah.
And when you were on the sort of road to recovery, were you in the estate agency while still working, or were you just long-term sick of this situation? Are you have an employer? Is it what's that look like?
So I went back. So I left the corporate company. Sort of mutual consent,
Yeah,
a bit like Pochettino, Chelsea fan. Mutual consent, which we all know.
Sure.
Know what that means. And then I went back, and I was desperate to still maintain this, image of I can still perform, I can still turn up for work, I can still deliver, I'm all right, and I feel like I needed, that to maybe help me get through it. But, I learned the hard way that wasn't the case. I went back to my previous employer, who I have to say, and part of today is about mental health and me not thinking I don't think there's enough support in the industry for people and staff, and for anyone who's struggling to go places within a company that they work within or the industry in general to get some support and help if they are struggling mentally or with addiction or just having a shit day basically and just need a bit of advice and guidance. However, the boss of the independent company that I worked for the last part of my career, 15, 16 years, was absolutely phenomenal to me. So as much as my early days, I'm not referring to them, was just the culture of, breeding what it was breeding. And I got a lot of great stuff from that. And I think it made me the type of agent I am today in terms of, the will to want to succeed and be the best and do the best. But going back there, he was phenomenal. He took me to meetings. He sacrificed his own times. I lost my driving license in this time, so I'd effectively stolen a car that didn't belong to me. Obviously no insurance and didn't belong to me, etc. And police were after me and caught me, and I ended up losing my license. He still kept me employed at that particular time. He would drive me to meetings, CA meetings, and anywhere and everywhere I need to go. Would come to my house in the morning at 7:30 to pick me up, to bring me to work, to take me home. Made sure try to keep me as safe as possible and protect me, because he didn't know. People that haven't been in addiction don't know how to handle people that are in addiction, and it's so frustrating. And I see it from the other side now because of doing the workshops I do and trying to help people get through addiction now and using my experiences. It frustrates me when they don't turn up. It frustrates me when they don't listen to me. It frustrates me because I know it can be done. And all of those things that they felt, I now feel from the other side. And I'm like, I say to my partner now, I get how you felt. It's so frustrating. You just want that person to stop, And with the greatest respect, I don't love these people, but I want to help them. But I was, a son, a partner, et cetera, et cetera. But Bob was really good, and he would take me, anywhere and everywhere I needed to go and try to protect me from the addiction and done what he could do to help. And that I'll be forever grateful. We're still brilliant friends today. He's like another father to me. So going back into it, he just wanted me to be better. So gave me an important role at the company, which I try to hold down and do my best. But again, everyone knows it's quite a, we talk about mental health, but the industry is very gossipy. A lot of politics. A lot of people like to talk. It's quite young, so I feel like people like a bit of gossip. It's hard with social media now as well. I had missing posts out there that you go on Google, you still see stuff that just stays there forever, and that worries me as well. And releasing today worries me because in that time I've changed my life and as built a business that if I'm going to release this, I'm sitting there and being completely honest, I'm thinking, is someone not going to want to work with me because of my past? When in actual fact, I shouldn't even be thinking like that. But that's just the mind of the human and how it works. And yeah.
So you've alluded there. So you not only have you built a business, you built a very successful business. So how do you deal with now? Because obviously the highs and lows in a self-employed business are higher and lower. And obviously when you were back in the corporate days, obviously that didn't go the right direction, let's say. How do you manage that now as you've sort of been through that process? How do you manage those ups and downs? Because they can have those swings daily and weekly and monthly. How do you look after that?
So I alluded to obviously Stacey, my fiance. Like we're a great team. We do everything together. She's self-employed. She builds houses. I sell houses. So should be the other way around,
fantastic dinner time conversation. I'm sure.
Yeah. We try not to do any shop talk at dinner time, but never works out like that. So in terms of me overcoming, you're right. Being self-employed is probably harder in the sense that there are some massive highs and lows. But being an independent agent on my own, I'm spending 8, 9, 10 hours a day just in my own head. And it is a battle, I can't lie, but not the kind of battle that I would deal with previously, or that leads me to think I need to go and get some sort of high elsewhere. If I struggle, I'll go and talk to Stace. I'll talk to Antonelli, who is here in the corner today.
Hiding.
But I've got some really good friends around me, some great family members. Both my brother-in-laws are in the property industry, both developers. I pick up the phone, have a chat with them, and just my dad, Bob, like I alluded to. Just I've got good people around me, and it's just about talking. I feel like now it's where I would hide and try and figure out and solve the problem myself. I've realised that actually it's not shameful to go and ask someone for help and just say, look, I'm struggling with this. What do you think? Why do I feel like this? What should I do differently? Give me your advice. I just, I just manage things a bit better. I try to do a bit of exercise, which helps, but as you can see, by me keep going like that, it's not going too well. And the kids, I do stand back and look at where I was. And when I say I lost it all, Chris, I lost it all. I had nothing. And like I said, I thought it was game over for me. So I try to remember that to make me appreciate what I've got. So I might not have hit my target that I've set myself for that month, or I might not have achieved what I wanted to achieve that week, that day. And like I said, I want to be the best at what I do, and I want to deliver, absolutely exceptional results for my clients. So I do put a hell of a lot of pressure on myself for that reason. However, if it doesn't quite go my way, I do, stand back and just try and take a minute, look around me, and think, you had nothing 5 years ago. Since that time, you've now got a fiance, you've got a lovely new house, you've got a beautiful new baby daughter, you're watching your teenage daughter grow into an amazing young lady, you're having a positive and powerful impact on them. And my eldest, we made a decision a few years back to my eldest was 5 or 6 at the time. So, she's not stupid. Kids know things are going on, but I made a decision to sit down and talk to her about why I wasn't around and why I was missing. And again, I was trying to still stay present in her life, and fortunately I did. But obviously, there were times where I let her down. And I think it's when people say, well, what about Ava? What about Stacey? What about all of the things that you love around you? Let me tell you, and addiction doesn't allow for love, doesn't allow for you to, but I'm going to put the addiction down today because, I need to be responsible for X, Y, and Z. Yeah, it's a horrible, horrible thing that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, and just controls and takes over you. But yeah, in today's, life, it's, I'm clear-headed. I can deal with things a bit better. And I talk. I think talking is the biggest thing for me. As you can tell.
Yeah, that's good. Good. Talking's good. So it's one of those funny things, isn't it? I think when it comes to sort of men, especially talking about their feelings, it's one of the few parts of the world where doing the hard thing is almost feels like the wrong thing. So the easy thing to do is kind of to stay quiet and not say anything, and then you do the hard thing, which is actually to talk about it, and everyone's like, "What are you doing that for, mate?" Sort of thing. I'd rather you just stay quiet, kept to yourself, sort of thing. So if someone was listening, watching this, and thinking to themselves, I'm ticking some boxes here, this is kind of aligning what I'm thinking, sort of thing. What do you think is their first step to sort of being to where they could be, should be, or improving their current situation from where they are today?
In terms of if they're feeling how I felt
in the past, how you felt 5 years ago.
Talk to someone, pick up the phone and talk to someone, talk to me. I think this isn't, for me doing this today and me being quite vulnerable in terms of putting this out there, because it will go out there. All I hope really is that I don't want any plaudits. I don't want any well done. I don't need that. I tell myself well done. But it's more to resonate, hopefully, with just one person. Hopefully it doesn't, because hopefully it doesn't need to. But that isn't the case. We know the world we live in. And it doesn't matter if it's agency or whether it's, any other industry. If it gets in front of someone that's sitting there feeling the same things, just go and talk to someone, pick up the phone. I mean, first and foremost, I'm not a doctor, so I can't diagnose what to go and do or, offer advice in that sense, but maybe go and speak to a doctor. But if it's someone that you want to talk to that might understand what you're going through, but your friends, family, because I think that was one thing I struggled with, was that, unless you had been through, the addiction side of it and all of the side effects that comes with the type of, drug that I used, for instance, you didn't understand it, and it was hard to talk to people unless they've been through it. So listen, I'm happy to talk to anyone. I'm happy to lend an ear, be available to talk to. The workshops, I don't run them anymore because people, they just weren't coming back, which is a shame. But I still got, a page open on Instagram where people still contact me. I think there's, quite a few people are aware of the story. So, it's funny really, not funny, but, a lot of people, maybe friends of friends and friends of family, sort of come out the woodwork and say, you know what, Dan, I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z, and I saw what you've done and see that you've been through things. You mind having a chat? So for me, I'm happy for anyone to reach out to me, and I've always got time for people to talk about those struggles, because if I can help anyone, and if it's just one person, it's one person better than none.
And I think that if anybody was to look at your social media and your Rightmove page and whatever else, maybe they'd be like, Dan smashing these, killing these, listing these properties, selling these properties, must have the life, must be, on hold every 10 minutes, whatever else it may be. So I think it's amazing of you to come on and say, actually, this is the full story. Don't judge a book by its cover. You might be seeing, chapter 52 today, sort of thing, but there's a lot of chapters to get through before you get to that point.
I think that's a really good point, Chris. I think people see what they want to see. Certainly with social media, it's like a snapshot, isn't it? Of what's happening in someone's life at that particular time. And if it's a positive, it's they must be flying and et cetera, et cetera. But even to get to that point of getting that listing or producing that sale or getting that exchange or completion, bloody hell, the work that goes into that, especially in this market at the minute, is tough. And yeah, I've got a lot, in terms of what I've managed to build in that particular time. But again, from someone who thought that was it, I didn't know where I was going to end up. Actually, I've got way more now than I ever have done. So the last 5 years of my life, without a doubt, whether that, not materialistic things as such, but in terms of, what I've, I suppose, the rewards I've got, in that time through working on myself, completely outstrip anything I've achieved in earlier life, and done in a short space of time, really. So, there is, if there's someone struggling and thinks that there's no way out, hopefully they can look at me. I'm sure there's better examples out there, but they can look at me and think, actually, well, there is a solution, and you can, turn things around if you really want to. And that's the key thing. You've got to want to do it. But sometimes people don't know how to do it, and they just need to, be pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, I think sometimes just that first step, isn't it?
Yeah, first step's a key one. And I made probably 100, 200 first steps and tripped up, 199 times. But, and I hate, don't give up and all of that type of, because, so easier said than done, when you're on this side of the fence. But, there is a solution. And it can be, when you're in it, you read all of these stats that only, 3 or 5% of people beat addiction in the world, and there's, a billion people in it. But, ignore those things.
Yeah.
Every case is individual.
Dan, thank you for your time today. It's been amazing, man. I think, fair play. Hat comes off to you. I think to do what you've done today has been amazing. And if, as you said, if one person takes away from it what we want today, then absolutely amazing, mate. You'd be very proud of who you are and what you've achieved.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, mate.
You.
Have for that.
You're good.